witches, welcome back on my channel. Today we're talking about the last yet the most important Sabbath, Samhain. This is our fourth fire festival, and as I literally just said, the most important one. So Samhain pretty much falls right between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. So in the northern hemisphere it is on October 31st and November 1st, so all the way through the night, and in the southern hemisphere it is on the 31st of April on to May 1st. So when one side of the world is celebrating Samhain, the other half is typically celebrating Beltane. Now, what is it? It is the time of the end of the harvest, so a time to gather everything that's left to harvest before winter. And it is the most important one because it's considered as the witches' New Year, or actually just the Celtic New Year. It is a celebration to honor the dead, our ancestors, but also all spirits. It's about appreciation, remembrance, so remembering our past loved ones. Also a good time for reflection and introspection, and sort of also a celebration of balance again, but this time about death and life, since there is death in life and a bit of life in death as well. It is indeed believed that at this time of the year, the veil between the mortal world and the underworld is at its thinnest, so it's easier to make connections with the underworld for us, but also for them. So it's a time where spirits of all sorts, good and bad, are thought to wander around on Earth. In the myth, it is believed that the sun god or the horn god is descended into the underworld, and that's why the veil is now thin. And the triple goddess is now in her crone phase, so the older and darker phase. As I said, it is the witches' New Year, so it's a good time to sort of bury all fears, frustrations, failures, just leave that behind and move on to the new. I guess I could say that later as well, but it's usually a good time for divination. Since darkness, the idea of darkness is so empty but so full of potential. Just hearing that like that, and with the dates, October 31st and everything, that may sound like it's just Halloween, right? And yes, as some of you may know, Samhain is the origin of our modern Halloween. Let's get into that. So originally, Samhain is a Celtic celebration, and actually in modern Irish, you could translate Samhain as summer's end. That's basically what it means, and the month of November in Irish is Samhain. It means November / the end of summer. Nothing more mysterious than that. The mystery comes later. In other places though, there's a similar celebration that doesn't necessarily have the same name. Well, in Scotland it is, I'm just gonna pronounce it the same, Samhain, but it's spelled like this. And on the Isle of Man it is spelled Samhain. In Wales, there's something called, I'm just gonna say it as I read it, Calan Gaif, don't come for me. In Cornwall, Calan Guav. And in Brittany, Calan Gohin. I messed up that one on purpose. And there's similar celebrations. Back in the day on Samhain, people would light huge bonfires to sort of ward off the evil spirits that may roam the earth. People would wear ugly or scary disguises, sort of to hide amongst the evil spirits, so they wouldn't get bothered, because they would just be the same, right? Some left offerings for their ancestors on their doorstep, but also in fields and near hawthorns where fairies were thought to live, and those offerings were given to sort of appease spirits and fairies. If you've watched my video about black cat superstitions, you may remember me talking about the Kutshi, a sort of black cat spirit who would come and collect his milk saucers on Samhain. Well, that's sort of the same principle with other fairies and other spirits as well. So that might remind you a little bit of the process of trick-or-treating in today's celebration of Halloween. Well, I guess there is some origin into that, because people come dressed as spirits basically and ask for a treat. Interestingly enough, the phrase itself, trick-or-treat, originated only in 1927 in Alberta. Hey! Alberta? But people were doing it anyway before that. Some dated back to the Middle Ages, where poor people would dress up as saints and sort of recreate scenes door to door, or would sing songs in exchange for food and charity. But it is also thought that in the ancient Celtic celebration, druids would go door to door to gather food for the gods as an offering for the gods. And apparently also some children or people, I guess, would go door to door to ask for wood for the big fire where all of the village would gather, and then at the end of the night they would each take sort of a piece of wood from the fire and then bring it back home to light their own fire. The jack-o'-lantern, which is also a big symbol of Halloween, was also to scare the evil spirits. But yeah, originally it wasn't a pumpkin, since pumpkins are native to America, the continent. So originally they would carve turnips. And it sounds weird, but just look at this for a second. This is terrifying. This legit looks like a decaying head, doesn't it? So I totally understand the spirits would get scared, although they probably looked like that themselves. Anyway, when Irish immigrants came to the States and they found pumpkins, they were like, fuck, this is gonna be way more easier to carve. Now it's working, and we love some pumpkin. But the name jack-o'-lantern for those lanterns come from a legend. This guy named Jack, who was a trickster, he was a liar, he wasn't a good person. In one version, he succeeded into tricking the devil himself and made him promise never to bother him again and never to take his soul. But then came the day that he died, and he got refused entry to heaven because he was a bad person. But then he also got refused entry into hell because the devil was like, fuck you. I don't even want you. So he basically condemned him to roaming the earth for eternity alone. But he was like, you know what? I'm not that mean. I'm gonna give you this turnip with a candle in it. It's gonna keep you company. So on Halloween or Samhain, Jack is said to roam the earth with his little lantern. That's the legend behind the jack-o'-lantern, the name of it at least. But of course, this was also Christianized at some point, i.e. the saints that I mentioned. I guess that's why it always confused me as to why Halloween was a Christian thing. And the reason I was confused, I guess, is because it wasn't. So in the 5th century, Pope Boniface, I think it's the 4th, I had trouble finding the number, or the 5th, some pope decided to create this Christian holiday for all saints and martyrs, so basically dead people, actually on May the 13th, and it was called All Saints Day or All Hallows Day. Hallows meaning, I think, holy or sacrificed. So All Hallows Day on May the 13th, which is kind of close to Beltane as well if you think about that. But people still celebrated Samhain on top of that. Forward a couple centuries, in the 9th century, Pope Gregory, I think the 4th again, some pope moved that holiday for everyone, for all Christian countries, to November 1st, the same day. And on the 2nd was All Souls Day, and so on the 31st, which is the eve of All Saints Day, was All Hallows Eve, which evolved into Halloween. Okay, we get it. Essentially to celebrate dead people who fought for the faith. So Samhain being a celebration of all dead people at some point, it just evolved into this Christian thing. But a lot of the things that are still done today are basically pagan. Yeah, are basically pagan and sourced from the Celtic practices back then. Enough history. Now let's get into some symbols connected to Samhain. So of course, I guess there is the pumpkin, although this is more of a recent one. There is also apples, considered to be the fruit of life. And then there is the pomegranate. This isn't really connected to the Celtic version of Samhain, but there is the pomegranate. A lot of modern witches consider it to be the fruit of death, or sort of the fruit connecting all human beings to the underworld. And this is rooted into the myth of Persephone, if you want to look that up. Another symbol is the cauldron. It is said to contain both all life and all death in it. The broom, the witch's broom, is both practical and spiritual. So practical because it can sweep all the fallen leaves on your porch, but also it can sweep all bad energy and all old energy for the new year. Crows, since they sort of represent death. I guess black cats as well, but watch my video. Skulls, that does represent death, obviously, but also sacrifices. I guess I didn't mention that earlier. The Celts were also thought to do some sacrifices on Samhain. Colors that are related to Samhain are black for, you know, death, but the darkness. Orange for the fire, also for the leaves, for the pumpkins, I guess. But it also represents sort of the vitality of life. Red also for the fire and vitality. And also purple, which represents wisdom, the mystic. Purple is really that color that represents that mystic energy. I'm just gonna quickly name some deities just in case you were interested that could be related to Samhain. So in the Celtic pantheon, there is the Morrigan, who literally represents death. The Calavera, who is said to be reborn that night. There is Cernunnos, I don't know how to pronounce that word. In Wales, there is Ceridwen, Rhiannon also. In the Greek pantheon, we got Hecate, Persephone, as I mentioned earlier. I guess Hades. Some others would be Lilith, Kali, Odin, Anubis, Osiris, basically all death deities. Now let's get into how to celebrate Samhain. So as I said, it is a good time to do some divination. It's a time where you're more likely to get more insight, just get it more easily. You can connect, you know, there's the spirit world, but it's not only dead people. There's a lot going on there. A time to connect with the spirits, with your ancestors, if you had questions, or if you just wanted to establish some contact, some communication, a cute wee conversation. It's a very good time to do it, as long as it is done respectfully. You should do everything respectfully whatsoever, so with the living as well, but mostly with the dead. Some people like to leave a door open or just an empty seat at their table for ancestors or loved ones to be invited in. Of course, you can dress up. Like, it's not, I don't know who said this was for children. Who said this was for children? Dress up, have fun dressing up as a ghoul or a ghost. You can carve pumpkins and turnips if you want. Like, I feel like I want to try carving a turnips just to see. You can leave offerings at your doorstep, visit a graveyard, visit your loved ones. Of course, light a fire, light some candles or loads of candles. Harvest everything. If you have any type of garden, it is time to harvest all that's left. Apparently, it's bad luck to leave anything left behind, because it's also thought to be harvest that you can leave as offering for the dead. So if you don't pick it up and don't offer it, then it could be bad luck. There is a strong, powerful energy for spells in general, but if you have like bigger spells you want to do, that's a good night to do them, as long as you make sure that you're protected, because there's a lot of energy, good and bad, roaming around. You can gather with people, you know, it's a time to commune with the dead, but also you can commune with the living. Have a little party around the fire and have a little. Some people actually like to have dumb suppers. That's also an old tradition. It's a silent supper for spirits. Some people do it as a divination kind of spell in order to get something around midnight. You can look more into that. But yeah, you can have a dumb supper or you can have a regular feast. Now, what should you eat? So good foods are meat if you eat meat, but substitutes are also great. Root vegetables, so carrots, turnips, roasted seasonal veggies, potatoes, parsnip. You can have pumpkins or squash as well. Soups are great. Anything with apples, so either apples themselves, caramelized apples, cakes, apple crumble, ciders. You can have some spiced wine. I like to keep mine for Yule, but you can have some spiced wine. Some herbs that are good and complementary with squash especially are rosemary and sage, nutmeg, cinnamon, clove. I think that's all we had. It's all about noticing that, I guess, life is short, but also doesn't end after we die. probably. It's kind of a dark Sabbath, but also not that dark. It's my personal favorite. I've always loved Halloween, the vibe of it, and I guess now I love Samhain. So that was it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I can't believe I've already gone through all of the Sabbaths on the Wheel of the Year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this series. If you have any questions, you can comment them. Please like this video if you want some more content similar to this. That's the way that I will know if you like this or not. And please subscribe to my channel as well. That would make me very happy. On this note, I'm gonna wish you an amazing Samhain, and I will see you very soon. In the meantime, you can follow me on all of my social medias to see what I do. I'll see you very soon with my Halloween weekend videos. Spooky-ish, just Halloween-ish, Samhain-ish. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. It's just gibberish. Oh, who is this? Okay, I'm gonna go. I love you all very much. Goodbye.